My oldest daughter showed up to the meeting with a folder, not a get well card, not a casserole. A folder tabbed color-coded with my company already valued at half what it's worth and her name at the top of the distribution chart. Her husband Marvin set it on my kitchen table with a pen already uncapped. I hadn't even finished telling them I was sick yet. That image right there. That's the one I keep coming back to. My name is Earl Hollis. I'm 57 years old. I built Hollis Freight out of a single flatbed truck in 19 years of 4 a.m. mornings. The company runs 14 routes across Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. It's worth about $92 million today, and I built every dollar of it with my own 2 hands. No inheritance, no investors, no safety net. I'm also a widower. Loretta passed 5 years ago. Ovarian cancer, fast and ugly. After she was gone, the house got real quiet and I threw myself back into work because that was the only thing I knew how to do with grief. I have 3 kids, Sylvia, 34, Patrice, 31, and Wade, 28. I paid for Sylvia's accounting degree at DePaul, $112,000. I paid for Patrice's marketing degree at Georgia State, $89,000. I paid $28,000 for Wade's technical certification at the community college 2 towns over. He became a welder and a machinist. I remember thinking, quietly, that I wished he'd aimed higher, that maybe I'd shortchanged him somehow by not pushing harder. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about a lot of things. The night it all started, I was sitting on the back porch in Terre Haute, looking out at the field behind the house. Just me and a glass of iced tea and about 40 acres of nothing. Loretta used to sit out here with me on summer nights. She'd say the crickets were loud enough to drown out all the noise in your head. She was right about that. She was right about most things. The phone rang, Sylvia. Dad. Marvin and I found a property up in Lake Geneva. Strong investment opportunity. We need $180,000 for the down payment. The return on this is going to be significant. I asked her how she was doing. She said, fine, good, busy. Then she asked if I'd thought about the money. 40 minutes later, Patrice texted. Not called, texted. Hey Dad, got a pitch opportunity for a startup. Need 40 toddies curried to buy in. Can we talk? I put the phone down and looked at the field for a while. Then it rang again, Wade. Hey, just checking in. You doing okay? You eating right? That old Silverado of yours still running, or you need me to come take a look at it? He didn't ask for a single thing. He just called to check on his father. I sat there for a long time after I hung up. Then I called Carl Pruitt. Carl's been my estate attorney for 22 years. Good man, steady, the kind of guy who tells you what you don't want to hear and does it without enjoying it. Carl, I said, I need your help with something unusual. He tried to talk me out of it, 3 times actually. That's how I knew I was onto something. What I asked Carl to do was straightforward in concept and complicated in execution. I wanted to see what my children were actually made of, not the versions they showed me at Thanksgiving, but the real versions, the ones that show up when there's nothing in it for them. The plan, I would tell each of my kids that I'd had a mild stroke. Hollis Freight was in trouble, a partner had drained the operating account, a lawsuit was pending, the bank was calling in the line of credit, the whole thing was coming apart. Carl would build the paperwork to make it look real. I'd let my appearance go. Old clothes from a Goodwill in Bloomington, unshaved, tired. A man who'd lost everything and had nowhere to turn. Then I'd knock on 3 doors and see who opened them. Carl spent 2 weeks building the documentation. Fake financials showing $2.1 million in losses. A lawsuit filing. A letter from the bank on real letterhead. He also quietly locked down every actual Hollis Freight asset, so nothing could be touched during the process. Everything the company really owned was protected. He also set one more thing in motion without telling me right away. He started monitoring the company's secondary operating account. Just watching, just in case. That part turned out to matter more than either of us expected. The hardest part of the whole setup was looking at myself in the mirror. I'd stopped shaving. My hair had grown out uneven. I was wearing a Carhartt jacket with a torn pocket and jeans I'd bought at a thrift store for $6. The man looking back at me looked like he'd been beaten down by something he couldn't name. The desperation in his eyes, though that part wasn't an act. Because here's the thing, nobody tells you about testing the people you love. You have to be prepared for the worst answer. What if all 3 doors closed? What if I'd spent 35 years building something and every person I'd built it for had learned exactly the wrong lesson from watching me do it? I pushed the thought away and got in the truck. Chicago first. Sylvia and Marvin had a place in Lincoln Park. Stone front, iron gate, a car in the driveway that cost more than my first 3 trucks combined. I parked the Silverado half a block down because I didn't want it sitting in front of their house. Old habit from a different kind of life. Marvin answered the door. He looked at me the way you look at someone who's rung the wrong bell. Earl. Not come in. Just my name, like a question he wasn't sure he wanted answered. I need a few days, I said. Something happened with the company. I'm not doing well. He stepped outside and pulled the door, mostly closed behind him. I could hear Sylvia somewhere in the kitchen, the sound of dishes, a TV on low. This is actually really bad timing, Marvin said. He wasn't unkind about it. That almost made it worse, the way he said it, like he was delivering a scheduling conflict, not turning away his father-in-law. We're in the middle of the sale process on this house. An elderly guest complicates things with showings. Elderly guest. I was 57 years old. I had written the check for Sylvia's tuition when this man was still in law school. Sylvia came to the door a minute later. She looked at me, really looked, took in the jacket, the unshaved face, the truck down the block, and something moved across her expression. Not warmth, more like a rapid calculation happening behind her eyes. Dad, what happened to you? I told her. The stroke, the partner who drained the accounts, the lawsuit, the bank calling in the credit line, the whole story, standing on her front steps. The way you tell things when you have nowhere else to go. I just need somewhere to stay. A couch, a few days to figure out next steps. She looked back at Marvin. He gave one small shake of his head. The kind that's meant to be subtle and isn't. Dad, we can't right now. The timing with the house. She went inside and came back with an envelope. $300 cash. Get a hotel, get some rest. Once things settle down, we'll make a plan together. Okay. The door closed, the lock turned. I stood on that front step for a moment. The iron gate was still swinging behind me from when I'd walked through it. I watched it slow down and stop. $300. I had paid $112,000 for her education, $200,000 for the down payment on this house as a wedding gift. And when I showed up with nothing, she'd calculated my worth at $300 and a hotel referral. I drove to Atlanta. Patrice lives in Buckhead. Nice building, doorman, the kind of lobby that's designed to make you feel like you've arrived somewhere. I called from the street outside. She picked up on the 4th ring. I told her what I'd told Sylvia. The stroke, the company, the ruin. I told her I needed help. There was a pause. Then, Dad, this week is insane. I've got a campaign launch and 2 client dinners. I literally cannot deal with logistics right now. I said I wasn't asking her to deal with logistics. I was asking her to let her father in. Another pause. Let me send you something, she said. She never came downstairs. 2 minutes later, $200 hit my phone through Venmo. The note said for expenses. Like I was a contractor she'd hired to move some furniture. I sat on a bench outside her building for a while. A woman walking a yellow lab smiled at me as she passed. A complete stranger. More warmth in that one look than I'd gotten from 2 of my 3 children combined. I got back in the truck and drove north. It took me just under 4 hours to reach Millbrook. Wade was on a late shift at the machine shop. I knew his schedule because he'd mentioned it on the phone the week before. Same way he always mentioned things, just talking, not making a point of it. The roll-up door was open when I pulled into the lot. I could see the blue flicker of the MIG welder from 50 feet away and hear the steady sound of metal meeting metal. He came out when he heard the truck, lifted his welding helmet up onto his forehead, looked at me, not at the jacket or the stubble or the truck, but at my face, and his expression didn't calculate a single thing. It just went straight to concern. Dad. He walked toward me. What happened? Come inside. Not what are you doing here? Not this is a bad time. Just come inside. He sat me down on a metal stool near the workbench, got me a bottle of water from the cooler in the back, and waited while I talked. I told him the same story. All of it. When I finished, he didn't fill the silence immediately. He looked at the floor for a few seconds like he was thinking something through. Then he stood up, pulled out his phone, and called his shift supervisor. Told him he had a family situation and was heading out. No elaboration, no apology, just a statement of fact. You're staying with me and Nadine, he said. putting the phone in his pocket. I told him I couldn't ask them to do that they had their own lives, their own bills, that I'd figure something out. He looked at me with that steady, patient face he'd had since he was about 12 years old. You're not asking. I'm telling you, your family, Dad. That's the whole thing. That's all there is to it. He turned off the welder, pulled down the roll-up door and walked me to his truck. No conditions, no calculations. No envelope with cash and a redirect to somewhere else. Just your family. Come on. I hadn't heard anything that simple and that true in a very long time. Wade and Nadine's place was a 2-bedroom rental on the east side of Millbrook. The furniture was second-hand. The kitchen was small enough that 2 people had to turn sideways to pass each other. But there were photographs everywhere, on the refrigerator, on the hallway wall, on the little shelf above the TV. Loretta was in one of them, from maybe 12 years back, laughing at something off camera. I hadn't seen that picture in years. Nadine was awake when we got in. She took one look at me and didn't ask a single question. She just went to the bedroom and started pulling extra blankets out of the closet. "You're taking the bed," she said. I told her absolutely not. She looked at Wade. Wade looked at me with that same patient expression. I slept in their bed that night. They slept on the pullout in the living room without a word of complaint. I couldn't sleep much. The walls in that place were thin, the kind of thin where you can hear the refrigerator cycle on and off and the neighbor's television through the drywall. Around 1 a.m., I heard Wade and Nadine in the kitchen, their voices low. They thought I was asleep. Every word carried. Nadine said, "We need to figure out money," Wade said. "I know. He's going to need neurological evaluations. Probably rehab therapy. Our insurance won't cover him, and if the company is really gone, there's nothing to draw from." A long pause. "What about the F-250? Wade asked. His voice was quiet and flat, the way it gets when he's already made a decision and is just saying it out loud. "We could get $18,000 for it easy. Enough to cover the first few months of care, maybe more." "That's your work truck, Wade. I can drive the Ranger. It runs fine." Another pause. Nadine didn't argue. That's the thing about her. She doesn't perform. She just weighs things and then she decides. He went to Sylvia first. Wade said. Nadine didn't respond. And Patrice. His voice was still level, but something underneath it had gone tight. He showed up with nothing and they both turned him away. Sylvia handed him cash and closed the door. Patrice didn't even come downstairs. A silence. What did any of it mean, Nadine? All those years, all that money he put into them. What did it actually mean? Nadine was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "It means they had every opportunity. What they did with it, that's on them, not him." Another long silence. "Sell the F-250, Wade said finally. "Dad needs us. That's the only thing that matters right now." I lay in their bed in the dark with my eyes open for a long time after that. I called Carl the next morning before anyone else was up. Stood on the front step in the cold with a cup of coffee I'd made quietly in their small kitchen. "It's time," I said. "But there's something else. Check the secondary operating account. The one Sylvia has access to through that old power of attorney." Carl was quiet for a second. "I already pulled the records last night," he said. "I was going to call you this morning." During the 2 weeks I'd been running the test, Sylvia had used the power of attorney documents, papers I'd signed years ago for a completely different purpose when she'd been helping me manage the books during a busy quarter to access Hollis Freight's secondary operating account. She'd moved $47,000 into an account Carl didn't recognize. The transfers were timed carefully, spread across 4 transactions, each one just under the threshold that triggers automatic bank review. It wasn't a mistake. It was too clean, too deliberate, too well-timed to be anything other than intentional. Carl requested a meeting through Sylvia directly, told her I wanted to discuss updating my will while I still had the clarity to do it properly. She drove down from Chicago in under 4 hours. Marvin came with her. They walked into my kitchen, and Marvin set that folder on the table before he'd even taken off his coat. Their version of how the estate should be divided. Hollis Freight appraised internally at $4 million, less than half its actual value. Sylvia and Patrice listed as controlling shareholders. Wade's share, a flat $75,000 cash payout, and the old Silverado, the truck I'd driven for 11 years. Marvin uncapped his pen and set it on the folder. "Earl, if you execute this before the estate goes into probate, it protects everyone," he said. "We've been thorough. This is the cleanest way through." He pushed the folder an inch closer to me. I looked at Sylvia. She was watching me with something careful in her expression. Not guilt, something more like patience, the patience of someone who believes the outcome is already settled and is just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. I looked at the pen. Then Carl came in from the back hallway. He set his own documents on the table beside their folder. The recording from a small device that had been sitting in plain sight on the kitchen counter since that morning, legal under Indiana's one-party consent law. The bank transfer records, all 4 transactions, all 4 dates. The receiving account traced back to a joint account in Marvin's name. The original power of attorney document with the scope clearly defined, and a legal analysis showing exactly how far outside that scope the $47,000 in transfers had gone. Elder financial abuse, that's what it's called in Indiana statute. It carries civil liability and in cases of deliberate exploitation, criminal exposure as well. Sylvia's face went the color of old concrete. Marvin's hand moved toward the folder like he was going to pull it back off the table. Carl put 2 fingers on it, gently. Just enough. I stood up. My back hurt the way it always does in cold weather. My knees aren't what they were. But I stood up straight, and I looked at my oldest daughter, and I said it plainly. I never had a stroke. Hollis Freight is worth $20 billion, and I own every share. I built this test because I needed to know who you actually were. The kitchen was very quiet. And now I know. Nobody said anything for a long moment. Sylvia looked at the recording device on the counter, then at the bank documents, then at Carl. Her eyes moved the way eyes do when a person is trying to find the exit in a room that doesn't have one. Marvin started to say something about their attorney. Carl told him to go ahead and make the call. He didn't make the call. The choice I gave them was simple, and it was final. No criminal charges, and Indiana's elder financial abuse statute has real teeth, civil and criminal both, in exchange for a signed agreement surrendering all priority claims on the Hollis Freight estate. They could still receive a portion, but it would be conditional, structured, and entirely on my terms. The $47,000 would be returned to the company account within 30 days. Sylvia asked if she could have a few minutes. I told her to take all the time she needed. She and Marvin stepped outside. They were gone about 12 minutes. When they came back in, Marvin sat down and didn't look at me. Sylvia sat across from me, and for the first time since she'd arrived, she looked like herself. Not the version with the folder and the calculated expression, but the girl I remembered from before everything got complicated. She said, "Dad, I'm sorry." I told her I heard her. I didn't tell her it was okay, because it wasn't okay, and she knew that, and saying otherwise wouldn't have helped either of us. What I told her was that sorry was the right place to start. They signed. The full restructuring took about 6 weeks. Hollis Freight transferred to Wade 80% equity, full operational control. Everything I'd built over 19 years placed in the hands of the one person I was certain would know what to do with it. Sylvia and Patrice each received $150,000 in a restricted trust, accessible after 12 months of family counseling, 100 hours of community service with elderly or low-income populations, and a written letter of apology, not to me, but to Wade. Nadine received $50,000 with no conditions attached. Carl read that line out loud, and Wade looked at me like I'd said something in a foreign language. She was going to sell her truck, I said. A man doesn't forget that. I bought a house 3 blocks from Wade and Nadine. 3 bedrooms, a garage, a backyard big enough for a dog, and a garden. Neither of us has gotten around to starting yet. Nothing fancy, exactly what I needed. 3 years later, Thanksgiving is at Wade and Nadine's. Their daughter, Clara, is 2 years old and has strong opinions about everything. What she eats, where she sits, who gets to hold her, and for how long. She calls me Grandpa Earl and says it like it's the most natural thing in the world, which I suppose it is. Sylvia is here. She looks different from the woman who walked into my kitchen with that folder. The corporate sharpness she used to wear like a second skin has softened into something more honest. She left the firm in Chicago 8 months after everything came out. She works for a nonprofit now, doing financial oversight for a housing assistance organization on the north side. Marvin is not in the picture. They separated about a year after the signing, quietly, without drama. Sylvia is rebuilding, and from what I can see, she's doing it on ground that's actually solid this time. She helped Nadine in the kitchen today. The 2 of them stood at the counter for almost an hour, talking the way women talk when they've decided to actually know each other. I watched from the living room and thought about how long it takes some things to become possible. Patrice teaches marketing at a community college in Atlanta now. She called me on my birthday this past year, not to ask for anything, just to talk. We stayed on the phone for almost an hour. She told me about a student who reminded her of herself at 22 And the way she said it, with a kind of clear-eyed recognition that wasn't entirely comfortable, told me she's doing the harder work of figuring out who she wants to be. That's not nothing, that's actually quite a lot. Wade runs Hollis Freight. He added 3 new routes last spring and hired 4 people from the county vocational program, welders and mechanics who needed someone to give them a shot. He calls me on Tuesday mornings to go over the numbers, and he still asks how my truck is running. Some things don't change. After dinner, I sat on Wade's back porch. Cold night, clear sky. Inside, I could hear Clara demanding someone read her a book, and Sylvia's voice saying, "Yes, okay, come here," and then the sound of the 2 of them settling onto the couch together. I thought about Loretta. I thought about what she would say if she could see this porch, this yard, this house full of noise. I think she'd say, "You finally figured it out, Earl." I spent $112,000 on Sylvia, $89,000 on Patrice, $28,000 on Wade's certification at the community college, and for years I quietly carried the worry that I hadn't done enough for him, that the modest path meant a smaller life. He chose honest, he chose real, and when his father showed up with nothing, he didn't calculate a thing. He just opened the door. That's not a small life. That's the whole thing. The crickets were going strong out in the field, beyond the yard, loud enough to drown out all the noise in your head. Just like Loretta always said, she was right about that. She was right about most things. If this story hit something real for you, if you've built something with your hands and wondered whether the people around you see you or just what you provide, leave a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me about the person who showed up when it counted. Those stories matter, and I read more of them than you might think. And if someone in your life needs to hear this today, share it with them. Sometimes the most important thing isn't the money you leave behind. It's knowing, before it's too late, who would have stayed if there wasn't any.